actually not the game. Okay. It's similar to the game that we'll be looking at. The game will be this one. Okay, so am I right that you guys have looked at the position here, this position?
I think some people have. They haven't had the material for too long, so maybe not everyone's had a chance to go through it.
Okay. Okay. Who here has looked at and had a go at kind of evaluating the position? Did anyone get the answer to that? Yes. Yes. Have you guys seen? Have some of you seen the whole game? Okay, so what for the people who've tried evaluating this position, and it's white to move. This was Carlsen against Aronian, World Rapid. What did you think about the position? How did you evaluate it? And other people can have a go now whilst they're first seeing it. It's actually a really interesting position. Okay, so I'm getting, someone suggested to me knight takes f7. That should be a candidate if you're trying to look for something really direct. Definitely f5 as well. Okay, lots of, well, some interesting ideas here. And yeah, okay, so I'm getting some people kind of direct messaging me that knight takes f7 and f5 maybe some ideas. Okay, but what about if we're just talking positionally, without thinking about some direct solutions? And what about if you take it actually from black's perspective? So what if it's black move? How would you assess the position? Because you can't really give me moves with black and tell me, like, you could tell me any move, but I don't know what you're really thinking. But what positionally, what do you think is happening? Let's say if I give black the move. Okay, I've got a lot of text from Gregory. He would say, so that's a long message. I'll just try and read it first. Here I'd say it's around equal, slightly more active minors. Piece of development is better. Yeah, so I'll just read it out because I think it's a fair enough comment. So Gregory, he says that he thinks it's around equal. White has slightly more active minors. Heavy, their heavy piece development is better. Some serious light square holes in the center. And white star square bishop won't be useful anytime soon. But white has some attacking ideas. Okay, and what about, what does black want to do? Probably they want to try and blockade on d5, right? Can everyone else hear me okay?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine, Rakaya. It must be your connection. Try coming back to the meeting.
Yes, so definitely black wants to play knight bd5, or yeah, knight ft5 is another move to blockade the isolated pawn. So what we can say is clearly the position is kind of unbalanced because of this isolated pawn. Positionally speaking, if it's black to move, does anyone have an opinion? Do they think white is better still? Black is better, equal? By the way, if people are happy to message or just shout out as well, you could also do it like publicly, then everyone else can see your ideas, because I think there's lots of useful things there. But there's a lot of I'm getting loads of messages.
Yeah, do it to everyone, and then we can all see, because I think it's
if you're comfortable to do so, then that's going to be really useful. Also just to see what other people are thinking. White slightly better in development. Okay, So no one really so far. Okay, someone has told me that black might even be winning. I think that's a bit much if it's black to play. But that's the only comment I've seen so far. People are giving very exact assessments, like +1, +0.9. It's interesting.
You're supposed to be looking at the position, not looking at what the engine says.
Yeah, computer age. Actually, it's interesting because when I look at this from black's perspective, I actually really find this interesting that everyone seems to be thinking white's slightly better, except for one person who thinks is winning for black. I actually think this is better for black if it's black to move. I've had a lot of experience on both sides of these, and I can say if it's black to play, well, okay, it's probably closer to equal, but I think that black has better chances actually to play for win. And the reason is that black is actually positionally better if white isn't gonna pretty much attack and mate me. Then I could make a serious argument that black is positionally better. So the real question when you have these isolated queens pawn positions is, does white have compensation in the form of some kingside attack? And it certainly looks pretty scary with pawn on f4, maybe lots of active pieces, which many people have already commented about. But still, like optically, it could be nice, but in the long run, if you don't do anything with it, and if black has a solid defense, then black is better positionally. You have this weak pawn on d4, strong knight, lots of pieces able to blockade the pawn on d4. Yeah, and Gregory says that yeah, if you flip the board, then suddenly it's like, okay, looks good for black. But okay, rook c8, and usually black is trying to put pressure on this d4 pawn. Okay, really good point from Rock that g4 is Rock your name?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Rocky is a cool name. G4 kind of does look intimidating, but again, imagine that white isn't going to mate black. This is really risky because usually you shouldn't be weakening your king that much. I mean, one pawn it tends to be okay, but two pawns, F and G, I mean, you better be mating me, otherwise it's positionally disastrous. So, but this is actually one of the engine's top moves. Okay, so when I look at this position, white to play, that's one of the first things that comes to my mind, that if white doesn't do something relatively fast, then black might have a positional advantage. So when I have this IQP, I don't want to be just chilling for a long time and then suddenly they blockade my d pawn, put pressure on my d pawn, swap some of the minor pieces, and I can't attack. So lots of people telling me f5 looks like a serious candidate. I think knight takes f7 here is probably a bit premature. King takes f7. I think just king takes f7 and he should just be about surviving. Because bishop takes d6, I mean, that's two pieces they're sacrificing. So king takes f7. Yeah, f5, g takes f5, rook takes f5. I think black should be okay somehow. Knight bd5. You have lots of pieces around your king. After rook takes f5, I think. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces near the king. Piece up. I think it's okay. Except I miss queen h5. Queen h5, king g7, rook g5, king h8. Still need to calculate some things. King g8. Yeah, it does definitely look a bit intimidating, but maybe it's okay.
Mate there, does it?
Don't think you're getting mated. Yeah, it's probably okay for black. Well, I'll have to check, but I don't think it's too bad there. Actually, f5 is kind of the move that needs to be played. Should I just admit?
Yeah, don't worry, I've done it. Yeah.
Okay, so f5, and sorry for some. Just a sec. Okay. What's the point after e takes f5? Yes, bishop h6. That's the point. And you can't play rook e8 because bishop takes f7. Attack, yeah. Someone's telling me just attack.
They all love
Yeah,
attacking.
exactly. Yeah, so, okay, but takes bishop h6 concretely. I mean, this is winning exchange. Black can't really avoid the loss of exchange. It doesn't necessarily mean it's that bad for black because they have good control over the d5 square, and they've got some control over this diagonal in particular. So f5, but you certainly can't ignore f5 with black. So you actually have to go for it. So already when I look at this position and I'm white, I'm thinking, okay, it's potentially good for me f5 to know that I'm winning exchange. By the way, after g takes f5, bishop h6, still black has to give up the exchange basically because rook e8, knight takes f7, that's game over. Here it's very clear, just queen takes c6 next. So have it on the board. It should takes. Okay, actually I probably have to know how to mate somehow, but king g6, okay, should be mate. Okay, so e takes f5, bishop h6, and still I think it's fairly unclear the position, but white has, you could say, some decent attacking chances, and you're going to win the exchange most likely. So I'm definitely going for this. If I have that position with f5, where I had f5 as a possibility, I definitely go for this, knowing that I can't just sit around and do nothing. Okay, so bishop h6, and black made a mistake here, but it was difficult to know what to do. So black does have compensation. If you just ignore bishop takes f8, you have to put one of the knights to d5. He played knight bd5, which was a mistake. He should have played with the other knight. Let's have a look what happens first after knight bd5. Carlsen played, so I'm having problems moving with the, should be okay there. Knight bd5. Carlsen played a really strong move here, but you have to be able to calculate it a little bit. So it's white to play. What do you think? What do you think that white played in this position? You can take on f8, but you're not going to have an attack after that. But it's actually a sensible move, but you've got something even stronger than bishop takes f8. Stockfish 15 out. Someone said turn on Stockfish. That's how you know.
How you improve.
Any ideas? It's not that easy to find this move. But if you know that it's really good for white, you might be able to. But you do need to like kind of calculate some specific lines. So some people are messaging me knight takes d5, but I think bishop takes d5, and if there's no tactics there, then it's good exchange for white. You need to actually, yeah. Someone's found a solution actually. Okay, 2 people now. So g4 is the move. Okay, a sec. Sorry about that. Yeah, so g4. Oh yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to try and flick through and see if it keeps making that noise.
We can't hear any noise. I think it's all right.
You can't hear?
I can't, no.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Like every time I click on chess base, it's making weird noise. Okay, so g4. Now, so we've got some things to calculate. Let's start with the easy stuff first. What happens after knight takes g4? Someone refute knight takes g4 for me. So when black plays knight takes g4, free knight, yes. How is it a free knight? After knight takes g4, f takes g4, or free piece. Some big letters. Someone's told me knight takes g4, knight takes g4, f takes g4, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, 25. Yes. Knight takes g4, knight takes g4, f takes g4. Lots of exchanges. It's actually fairly easy to calculate because it's just all forcing moves. And then at the end, you can also just go simple. Just take this and take that. Or you can play as Theo said to me, 25. Or here's what takes 25. Okay, so double attack. That's game over. Okay, so that's the easy one. Slightly harder, f takes g4. So what happens on g4, f takes g4? I'll give you the first move. The first move is just a simple bishop takes f8. And let's say black goes bishop takes f8. Try and find the win here. You have to crash through somehow. Rook takes f6. I think that may also be winning, actually. I'm getting rook takes f6, knight takes d5. I'm getting, those are the two moves that people are suggesting. Queen h5 is not possible. Okay. There's actually something even stronger, apparently. Knight takes f7. Making sure that the king is out in the open and subject to 2 pins now. And now we take an f6. So I think rook takes f6 might have been winning as well, but knight takes f7, king takes f7, now rook takes f6. This is really violent. But it's quite typical, really, that you have some initiative. You think you have advantage, then the culmination of that is a sort of sacrifice and then a win. Okay, now things are fairly clear. After king takes f6, there's queen e5 check. If queen takes f6, there's 2 ways to win. You can play knight takes d5 with some really unpleasant discoveries. Or, as Theo has suggested to me, rook f1 with winning the queen. Okay. So f takes g4 is losing. And also f takes g4, bishop takes f8, king takes f8, knight takes f7. Here is good as well. King takes f7, queen e5. Again, a violent way of doing things, threatening to take on d5. So black has to go step out of this pin, king g8. And then this is really too hard to find, I think. Well, maybe not. Rook d1, he's threatening. You just keep creating threats. Threatening queen takes d7. King h8. Then there's going to be knight takes d5 and the pins. So just too much going on here for black to handle. Yeah, that's pretty unpleasant for black to face this one. So after g4, black didn't play f takes g4. Black went for the counter attack with b5. And now after b5, I have a question. And actually, Carlsen made a mistake here. So okay, for the players, for the people who've seen the whole game, you may know what the mistake was, but for the other people, try and work it out. Do you take on b5? Take on b5 and move your bishop back to b3? Or do you play bishop a2? I'll tell you the point of this b5. The point is that there's way too much pressure on this d5 knight. So by playing b5 takes, black hoped that white will play, I don't know, bishop takes b5 or knight takes b5. But then there's not enough pressure on d5 knight, and so black is doing fairly well. But so you should somehow ignore black's play. And how are you going to ignore that? That's the question. Bishop a2, or do you take on b5 and then retreat to b3? Okay, loads of people are telling me bishop a2. Either that's their instinct or they've calculated something. Well, what happens after takes on b5, and then bishop b3? Why is it looks just as good, almost. So some people are telling me the file gets opened, which is definitely true. So the question is, do you take on b5, so a takes b5, a takes b5, and then bishop b3, or do you drop back to a2? So there's no b takes a4. So first taking on b5. It's the choice between here, bishop a2, or a takes b5, a takes b5, bishop b3. Those are your options. Those are the options I'm giving you on the menu. You don't get to think about anything else. But those are two serious candidates, but one of them is quite a bad idea. G5. Someone is suggesting to me G5, but from white or black? G5 for black, I'll just take. White plays G5. Okay, obviously. So B5, someone is suggesting G5, but if I just take this, then suddenly, so your point is to exchange, but okay, now positionally black is doing really well. You can take an f8 again, but takes this open diagonal on. Okay, so b5, your options are a takes b5 or bishop a2. The best move is indeed bishop a2. So everyone's instinct was correct, but no one gave me a specific reason why it's better, except someone who mentioned, okay, there's this black gets an open a file for their rook, which is true, but still it looks good. Unless black can do something with that rook on the a file. So what can black do to try and exploit this extra advantage that they've gained from this exchange on b5? If you play rook a3, I'll take on d5 first, and then I'll take an a3. You don't need to be too inventive here. So you don't need to play rook a3. Some players want to play rook a6 to e6. That's a bit slow. I am going to take an f5 and open up the f file. So you need a pretty quick solution to activate your rook, I would say. Something really quick. Well, forcing moves. What are the forcing moves in a position? You can always take on g4, but that's always going to open up the f file. You have knight takes c3. And okay, some threats. Well, people have suggested rook a3 to me. But to me, knight takes c3 is the one which needs to be seen first. And someone has told me already, Theo's told me knight takes c3 first, and then rook a3. So even if it looks kind of cool to play rook a3 immediately, that's not the move which should come to your head first. From a logical standpoint, in terms of the chess logic of forcing moves, knight takes c3 is more forcing than rook a3. So knight takes c3 first. You check that first. Whether it's good or not, we don't know, but now I know because I've checked it with the engine. But this is really good. In a game, that's the way you should approach this. If it doesn't work, then look for something else. So rook a3. And somehow it's black is really in the game now. Knight takes f7, I think I just take. That's actually an interesting idea. Knight takes f7, rook takes f7, takes. But I think actually it's white. He has to be very careful there. If queen e6 immediately, I take on b3 at the very least, or bishop d5. Yeah. Let's have a look at that. What I was talking about. If g takes f5, it's actually white. He has to be careful. I think white's just getting smashed here. Rook a2 is next. Okay, you can swap queens with queen e6, but that's not the point. Okay, so Carlsen shouldn't have allowed this. If he had played bishop a2, we have exactly the same as before, same situation as before, except black has played b5 and white has played bishop a2. And I can say that this is really too dangerous for black, because white is going to play g takes f5 next and make use of the f file. Still, there's lots of problems for black if they voluntarily take on g4, opening up the f file themselves. And okay, so white is, and there's no rook a3. Yeah, that's the difference, as Theo's pointed out to me. So bishop a6, he should have played knight fd5, but this is really subtle. After g4, black has a really nice defense here, which puts white on the brink of. I think white is probably a little bit worse after this move. So this is to test your defense. I'll flip the board. Black to play. How do you defend in this position? Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, you need to play. AlphaZero is very good in those positions, like playing slowly and kind of slow burning attack. But in these positions, it's super sharp. So, okay, so black to play, and I guess you haven't done so much on defending, but it's actually also important. Because usually we learn how to attack, but not as much to counter attack. We just get the general feeling for that. But it's also important to train that. Okay, some people have told me the solution in direct message and also in the public. Bishop g5. Now the issue for white is you can't take on f8 because of bishop b3 check, and there's some problems on this diagonal. So you see that it still remains true that white needs to be mating in order to play like this. Because if you're not gonna, or mating or kind of getting a big advantage, material advantage, because black has to deal with all the mate threats. But if black is back in the game, jumping with all the pieces, activating the rook on a3, for example, it's really risky for white. Okay, but that was too subtle for rapid game. He played knight bd5, g4, opening up the f file, b5. Carlsen made a mistake, takes, bishop b3. Now we know knight takes c3, rook a3. So he took on f8. Bishop takes f8, rook takes b3, bishop takes d7, queen takes d7. We have the complete mess of a position. G takes f5. Now this is a really difficult position. Aronian made a mistake here. I'll give you a choice. Do you play the move rook takes c3, or do you play the move knight d5? One of the moves is a mistake. Again, you need to sort of be fairly concrete in your calculation. Tremendously sharp and tricky position. In a sense, you might better work this out by really thinking and deciding well, I don't see anything wrong with one of these moves, therefore it's very likely to be this move. But you could also base it on intuition. I'm getting people who want knight d5 and people who want rook to d3. But what are the reasons? Okay. Okay, so I'm getting two reasons for knight d5. One of them is to play knight takes d3 and there's some forking action going on. The other thing is queen g5 check, and that's possibly quite a big threat. At least it looks dangerous for white. Okay, but still, at that level, they think more concretely than that, because it does look like in a bullet game, definitely I'll play knight d5, or blitz game. Don't play bullet, but blitz game, I'll play knight d5 and chuck it and see what happens. In a classical game, you can't actually afford to think like that, at least at the higher level. You need to say, okay, first of all, there may be some forking possibility, there may be some queen g5 check, but how good are they? And white hasn't moved there, so you need to actually think about specific moves for white after knight d5 and specific moves after rook takes c3. So let me see if anyone has anything for white. For example, after knight d5, white moves f takes g6. I agree with that. White, after knight d5, you take on g6. Queen g5 check, actually at the moment, is not such a big threat because I just go queen g4. So f takes g6, what would black reply after knight d5? F takes g6. The annoying thing is I'm probably not going to want to move the pieces here, because in a real game, you have to think about this stuff from here. So, okay, you do have to be careful, because if you play queen a2, then I'll play queen g5 check. The queen is sort of important to be protecting everything. So f takes g6. Queen g5 check, I actually don't think does anything because of queen g4, and you can just about survive white. Look at how many pieces you have near the king. It is really dangerous, but you have some pieces near the king. It's not totally defenseless. But if you play queen a2, that's like 9 units moving away from the king side. Could be fatal. So you wouldn't want to do that. But knight d5, f takes g6. Let's just say, okay, black plays h takes g6. So knight d5, f takes g6, h takes g6. What does white play there? Can you play rook takes f7? Also, are people able to visualize that, or is it really, really difficult? You can tell me in direct message if you like. I'm curious to see if you can visualize. I'm talking about knight d5, f takes g6, h takes g6, rook takes f7. Super easy, someone told me. Great. I can see it okay, so someone cannot play, someone told me cannot play rook takes f7 because of queen g5 check. Big letters, it's correct. Why is that, Jaden? After queen g5 check, can't I still play queen g4 blocking? Or not? No? So knight d5, f takes g6, rook takes f7. Queen g4, then queen takes g4, knight takes g4, king takes f7. Okay, so I'll put that on the board for people. Knight d5, f takes g6, h takes g6. The first thing we can see here is that rook takes f7 is not possible because of queen g5 check. And the defense that you wanted was queen g4 or knight g4. Probably queen g4 feels safer. But the issue is queen e3 checks rook f2, but queen takes here, knight takes g4, then king takes f7. Okay, so that was a small piece of calculation that was definitely required for you to see after knight d5. F takes g6, h takes g6, white cannot play, rook takes f7. Okay, and the problem in general was that queen g5 check was actually fairly annoying. So after knight d5, f takes g6, h takes g6, if you can't play rook takes f7, what should you play with white? Is it just bad for white? Oof. H4 is someone's suggestion to prevent queen g5, but I'll just probably take it. Then even worse, I think, because now you don't have this h pawn to defend. Queen h1 check becomes a problem. Yeah, I'm getting quite a lot of like funny messages. Okay, so yeah, 95 takes. What about preventing queen? So someone said queen g4, 93. Yeah, I think 93 is a problem. But try again, Theo. Try to do a similar thing and not blunder 93. Because you're onto the right idea. Queen d2 instead. Yes. So, correct is after knight d5, f takes g6, h takes g6, queen d2. Well, it's incredibly complicated still, and I could sort of forgive you in a rapid game or blitz game for like entering this and thinking that you actually could be better as black. In the classical game, if I had this position and I was black, so I should flip the board actually. If I had this position and I was black, I probably still wouldn't be able to come to a definite conclusion after knight d5. But after f takes g6, h takes g6, queen d2, there's still some things I need to think about, but it's really risky because my f7 pawn is hanging. I don't have this queen g5 check. I would say that the only time that I would play knight d5 is if I think I'm likely to be better as black after knight d5. But if we turn to rook takes c3 and we think about rook takes c3, what could we say about some of the lines there? So someone give me some suggestions after rook takes c3. Yes, definitely f takes g6. And how do we recapture with black? This is a positional question. Do you want to play f takes g6 or do you want to play h takes g6? H takes g6. Yes. Everyone has told me h takes g6. And why is that? So lots of people can tell me, but what about the reason? Don't open the F file. Yeah. Okay, so open files, we know rooks are good on open files. We know bishops like open positions as well. But actually, when you're the exchange down, you don't want to open a position. It's much worse for black to open up the position when they've got this huge rook lining up. So, yeah, h takes g6. So rook takes c3, f takes c6, h takes g6. Let's have that on the board. Black is going king g7 next, keeping the knight safe. And there may be some tricks on the diagonal. And you've won the c3 pawn. Actually, this is pretty okay for black. After queen takes b5, what does black play? Any ideas? play actively, is what I'll tell you. That's not a move you can make in chess. Okay. Any idea? 94. 94 actually looks quite tempting. Knight takes f7 then, I think. But you have better move rook c2. As Joseph said, rook c2. But as well, rook c2. Play active defense. You've got this knight. Knight's really good protector of your king. So don't be too concerned. Knight and queen here. Rook c2, active defense. Very good. So we can see we can actually evaluate quite clearly that rook takes c3. Well, we can clearly evaluate that rook takes c3 is unclear. Like, it can be better for anyone, but it's like, it's easier to understand that position. It's like unbalanced is a fair assumption. Rook takes c3. Not better for either side, probably. But knight d5, it's like, it's going to be losing for someone. Knight d5 is almost definitely going to be losing for someone. It's a really loose move. If anyone was, I know some people were at my last session where I talked about Carlsen, how he was protecting all of his pieces. This is pretty much the exact opposite. It's just throwing everything at the black king, the white king, which is kind of decent in blitz. And as I said, it's like, it's difficult to evaluate, but it's certainly risky. That's what we know 100%. That's a risky move. And so if you have a clearer option there, you probably would take it. Probably you should do. Now that's all the Aronian bashing for now, because he took on c3. Mistake. But yeah, fair enough, kind of sorry, he played 95, mistake. But it was fair enough given it was a rapid game. F takes g6. H takes g6. Sorry, he played black played f takes g6, probably saying that after h takes g6, queen d2, white had everything under control. Now there was some insane things here that I want to actually talk about as well after queen d2. Calculate rook b2 for me. Now this one, I'll be amazed if anyone finds how to win with white. Rook b2, actually everything is losing here for black. Rook b2 I thought was a nice idea. So queen takes b2, queen g5 check. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see the time. Okay, so this is probably the yeah, this is probably that we'll do the middle game. The end game is also very interesting, but it's 7 p.m. So we'll just finish with the complicated middle game. The end game is also interesting. Queen takes b2, queen g5 check, queen g2. Okay, looks fine. Looks fine. Lots of people telling me this. Okay. Now, before playing queen takes b2 in a game, I will always ask myself, what's wrong with queen takes b2? You ask a question like that in any critical position, and I literally ask this on every single move. I ask what's wrong with my move before playing it. What's wrong with queen takes b2? And when you put it like that, you start to look for the solution for black, for your opponent, which is why I have to put it in that way. It's the only way I can truly put myself in opponent's shoes. So queen takes b2, what's wrong with it? I mean, this is really complicated stuff. So you have to be good tactically, and you have to be able to calculate very well. Knight f4, rook takes f4, because I have rook g4 blocking. And knight e3 is too slow. I'll just play at least just queen f2 and bring my queen back. You have to play forcing continuation, black. So let's see how everyone can calculate. There's a lot of calculation training today. And you have to be creative as well. And it's also not easy at all to find a solution. But let's at least try and start with the most forcing line you can find. So what's the most forcing? Queen takes b2. Queen g5 check must be the most forcing. And now everyone's saying queen g2 and it wins. Okay, so after queen g2, okay, Theo has found a solution. Can anyone else find the solution? Yeah, that's correct. What you've told me, Theo. After queen g2, there's a win. And let's, once again, after queen g2, let's think about, yeah, it will be a total disaster for white if that happened. Queen takes b2, queen g5 check, queen g2. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Knight f4, queen takes g5, knight h3 mate. Very good. From, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but really good. Rukaya. Knight f4, queen takes g5, knight h3 mate. Now, if there's any kind of reason I have to give you for not opening up your king, it's going to be a tactic like this. You're going to get something nasty happen to you. But luckily, white's a rook up, so that's why Carlsen went into this, because these are significant amount of material, not just rook up, rook and exchange. So you can give back a lot of material. After queen g5 check, find a better move. And tell me why it's better. Okay, I've got a big congratulations. I'm the first person to pronounce the name correctly. So that's good. Yes, knight g4 first. Point is queen takes g4. Knight g4, queen takes g4, queen g2, knight f4, queen takes g4, and there's no knight h3 mate. Okay, so we're going to end on that beautiful tactic. I'll just I'll tell you just very briefly what happened here after f h6. White played rook d e1, not being scared about queen g5 because of queen g4, and he consolidated the position, and we got to some ending. But we're not going to have time to go through the ending. But yeah, this middle game was really exciting, I thought. There's a game, I'm just going to put it into chat for everyone to look at in their own time, if they'd like, which is the game between Botvinnik and Vidmar. I'm certain that Carlsen had this game running in his head when he played the moves f4, f5. This was exact copy and paste of the game Botvinnik Vidmar. So have a look at that game, and it also goes to show you should study lots of games of the great world champions of the past. You'll get a lot of ideas in your arsenal. Okay, that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Justin. That was a great session. And yeah, you'll see him again next week.
Yeah, speak to you guys next week.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.